The wealthier someone gets, the less they tend to say about money, not more. That sounds backwards. You'd expect the person with the most resources to talk about it the most freely. Instead, the opposite happens consistently across income levels, across cultures, across decades of research on the subject. This isn't about hiding something shameful. It's about something closer to a vault, a room built specifically to keep things both in and out. And once someone spent years building that room, opening it starts to feel almost structurally dangerous, even when nothing dangerous is actually behind the door. By the end of this video, you'll understand the 3 specific patterns behind that silence, what it actually costs the people living inside it, and why it has almost nothing to do with the number in the account. You don't need to be wealthy yourself to recognize this pattern. Think of anyone you've known who quietly built something substantial: a business, a property portfolio, a long career of disciplined saving. And notice how much less they talk about the specifics compared to when they were starting out. Early on, people share freely: the plan, the goal, the progress. Somewhere past a certain point, the sharing usually stops. That shift isn't random, and it isn't really about the money getting bigger. It's about something else entirely getting activated once there's something substantial enough to feel worth protecting. A closed door, like the one that shows up in ordinary money silence, usually just needs a key. A vault is different. A vault is built with intention, reinforced over time, and, critically, it's usually built for a very specific reason that made sense the day it was built, even if that reason stopped applying years ago. That's the core difference this video is about. Everyday money silence is often just an absence. Nobody taught you how to have the conversation. Wealth silence is usually the opposite. It's a structure someone actively built, often for a genuinely good reason at the time, that then kept operating long after the original threat was gone. Understanding wealthy silence means understanding what the vault was originally built to protect against, because it's almost never what people assume from the outside. Research on high net worth financial behavior and family wealth psychology points to 3 recurring patterns behind this silence. They rarely operate alone. Most people carry some combination of all 3. Pattern 1. Target avoidance. This is the most straightforward pattern and the one people usually assume is the only one. Disclosed wealth changes how people are treated. It can attract requests for loans, shift the dynamics of existing friendships, or create a background hum of "do they want something from me?" in new relationships. Financial psychologists sometimes call this the halo and horn effect of wealth disclosure. The same information can make someone seem either impressively successful or suspiciously guarded, sometimes to the same audience, depending on how and when it comes out. Faced with that unpredictable reaction, silence starts to look like the only response that doesn't risk either outcome. Pattern 2. Identity protection. This one is less obvious and, in the research, often more powerful. Many people build wealth precisely because of qualities they're proud of: discipline, judgment, patience, and they don't want the wealth itself to become the headline of who they are to other people. If the vault opens, in their mind, the conversation stops being about the years of decisions that built it and starts being only about the number. So the silence isn't protecting the money. It's protecting the story behind the money from being flattened into just a figure. Pattern 3. Inherited scarcity wiring. This is the pattern that surprises people most, because it applies even to those who grew up with very little and later built significant wealth. The nervous system's baseline sense of financial safety is largely set early, often in childhood, and it doesn't automatically update just because circumstances have changed. Someone who grew up watching money be scarce and tightly guarded can accumulate substantial wealth decades later and still operate the vault the exact same way. Not because the danger is real now, but because the wiring that built the vault in the first place never got the memo that the threat is over. The account balance changed. The nervous system's baseline didn't necessarily change with it. Notice that none of these 3 patterns are really about wanting to hide money. They're about managing perception, protecting identity, or running old wiring that hasn't caught up to present reality. The vault was never really built around the number. It was built around what the number might change about how someone is seen or how safe they feel, which is a very different thing to protect than the money itself. It's also worth noticing how these 3 patterns reinforce each other rather than operating independently. Target avoidance makes someone withhold information from acquaintances. Identity protection makes them withhold it from closer relationships, where the stakes of being reduced to the wealthy one feel higher, not lower. And scarcity wiring quietly convinces the nervous system that all of this caution is not just reasonable but necessary, regardless of what the actual social evidence suggests in the moment. Each pattern gives the other two a kind of cover, which is part of why the vault, once all three are operating together, can feel less like a choice and more like a fixed trait of someone's personality, even though every part of it was learned. Here's where the vault has a cost that's rarely discussed. And it's not really about the money at all. It's about what the silence prevents from happening around the money. Financial planning research consistently identifies a specific, well-documented failure point in family wealth. A significant share of transferred wealth is lost or mismanaged within a single generation after it changes hands, and the most commonly cited reason isn't bad investing. It's a lack of open communication about the money before the transfer happened. Heirs who were never included in any conversation about how the wealth was built, what it represented, or how decisions around it were made tend to make measurably more costly mistakes managing it once it's theirs. Let's put a rough shape on that. If a family's silence around money costs even one meaningfully avoidable mismanagement decision at the point of transfer, a decision that could have been prevented by a single honest conversation years earlier, the documented average cost of that kind of misstep across multiple studies on wealth transfer commonly runs into the tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes far more depending on the size of the estate involved. That's not a guaranteed outcome for any specific family, and the range varies enormously by circumstance. But the pattern itself, silence at the point of transfer preceding costly mismanagement after it, is one of the most consistently repeated findings in this entire body of research. The less measurable cost sits alongside that one. Relationships that never got to include an honest conversation about money while everyone involved was still around to have it. That's not something a dollar figure captures well. But people who've lost a parent or family member without ever having that conversation tend to describe the absence of it as one of the harder parts of the loss, not because they needed the money explained, but because they never got to understand the person behind the decisions. There's a third cost worth naming, one that shows up while the person is still very much alive and the vault is still fully sealed: the quiet isolation of never being able to ask for a second opinion. Someone maintaining a wealth vault often ends up making significant financial decisions about investments, about giving, about major purchases, entirely alone, not because they lack access to smart people who could weigh in, but because weighing in would require opening the vault even slightly. The same isolation effect that shows up in ordinary money silence shows up here too, just at a larger scale, with larger decisions riding on it. Here's what matters most across all three patterns. None of them makes someone secretive, cold, or untrustworthy. Every one of them made sense at some point, as protection, as identity preservation, as an old survival instinct doing exactly what it was built to do. The problem was never that the vault got built. Vaults get built for real reasons. The problem is that vaults, unlike doors, don't come with a natural moment where you're prompted to check if the original reason still applies. A door gets opened and closed constantly, so it stays calibrated to the present. A vault, once sealed, can stay sealed for decades without ever being tested against whether the threat that justified it is still there. Most people operating a wealth vault today aren't protecting against a real, present danger. They're maintaining a structure built for a threat that expired years ago, simply because nothing ever forced a recheck. This is worth sitting with, because it reframes the entire question people usually ask about wealth and silence. The usual question is, why won't they just talk about it? As if the withholding is the whole story. The more accurate question is, what was this vault originally protecting against? And is that still true? For a lot of people, once they actually sit with that second question honestly, the answer is no. The vault is still running, fully staffed, fully sealed, against a threat that quietly expired years ago without anyone ever checking back in on it. So here's one thing to try, and it's not tell everyone everything. That's not the point, and for most people, it's not even advisable. It's smaller and more specific than that. Pick one person you'd actually want to understand the story behind your relationship with money, not the number, the story. How you learned what you learned about it, what it felt like before you had it, if that applies. What you're actually protecting when you go quiet about it. Tell them that part. even if the number itself stays private. That's the actual mechanism worth testing. The number was rarely the thing worth protecting in the first place. The story usually was, and the story is the one part of the vault that can be shared without changing anything about your actual privacy or safety at all.